Trump strikes hard. Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's oil giants, sanctioned in a bid to end the war. Trump hopes war will be settled, even as Putin rages and Zelensky hesitates. A cancelled summit, fake news fights, and a deal that may never come. This is power, pressure, and peril on all sides. In a significant policy shift, American President Donald Trump has imposed sweeping sanctions on Russia's two largest oil producers, Rosneft and Lukoil, in a bid to pressure Moscow into agreeing to an immediate ceasefire in its war with Ukraine. The announcement marks the first major punitive measure against Russia since Trump took office, following weeks of signaling possible action. Speaking from the Oval Office alongside NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Trump said,
"Today is a very big day in terms of what we're doing. Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. Those are against their two big oil companies, and we hope that they won't be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled." We just answered having to do with the various forms of missiles and everything else that we're looking at, but we don't think that's going to be necessary. We would like to see them just take the line that has been formed over quite a long period of time and go and let's, go home. Last week they had almost 8,000 soldiers killed. Many Russians were killed last week. Many Ukrainians were killed last week. We think it's ridiculous and would like to have it end.
Trump felt it was time to act, adding that he waited a long time before taking this step. The American president expressed hope that the sanctions won't be on for long, saying he wants the war to end soon. When asked if the sanctions would push Putin to the negotiating table, Trump noted,
"Well, I don't know that they will. I think that they'll certainly have an impact. They're massive sanctions, and sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push... hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. It takes two to tango, as they say, and we're going to find out. They hate each other. These two people hate each other. You know that better than anybody, and it makes it more difficult than it should be.
At the same time, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent described the move as the time to stop the killing and for an immediate ceasefire.
Given President Putin's refusal to end this senseless war, the Treasury is sanctioning Russia's two largest oil companies that fund the Kremlin's war machine. The Treasury is prepared to take further action, if necessary, to support President Trump's effort to end yet another war. We encourage our allies to join us in adhering to these sanctions.
The sanctions also target dozens of subsidiaries and warn that foreign financial institutions engaging with the firms could face secondary penalties. Ukraine's ambassador to the United States, Olha Stefanishina, welcomed the decision, saying peace is possible only through sustained international pressure on Russia. The move came hours after a new Russian air assault struck Kyiv and other cities, underscoring the growing urgency of US efforts to push both sides toward negotiations. Trump has delivered a surprise shift in diplomacy this week, announcing that he had cancelled a planned meeting with Putin that was set to take place in Budapest. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump said the decision followed preparatory discussions between Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Explaining the move, Trump said he cancelled the summit because it didn't feel right to proceed and that he would revisit it in the future.
That'll be a big one. We canceled the meeting with President Putin. It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it. But we'll do it in the future. But next week we'll be with many of you in those locations that I told you. Then it's back to Washington.
The meeting had been expected to serve as a potential breakthrough in efforts to end Russia's war in Ukraine. But Trump admitted frustration with the lack of progress.
I think they want peace. I think they both want peace at this point. It's been, it's almost 4 years. You're going into 4 years. And if I were president, it never would have started. But yeah, it's time. Well, I think that in terms of honesty, the only thing I can say is every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere. They just don't go anywhere. So in that sense, but no, look, he's fighting a war. He's in a war. That's two very competent sides, and that's the way war is. You never know with war, but I would say that it's time to make a deal. A lot of people are dying.
A key point of disagreement between Washington and Kyiv emerged following Zelensky's recent visit, with Ukraine requesting long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles. Trump ruled out the transfer, saying the systems were too complex and required extensive training. He explained that the weapons take up to a year to master and confirmed that the US would not hand over control or training to foreign forces. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, speaking later at Joint Base Andrews, said the United States remains open to future dialogue with Moscow even after the cancelled meeting, emphasizing that Washington's door to diplomacy remains open.
Well, we'd still like to meet with the Russians. We'd still want to, and I think I had a good call with Foreign Minister Lavrov, and we'll follow up on that. We're always going to be interested in engaging if there's an opportunity to achieve peace. I think the president has said repeatedly for a number of months now that at some point he will have to do something if we don't make progress on the peace deal. Today was the day he decided to do something.
Trump has also denied reports that Washington had lifted restrictions on Ukraine's use of Western-supplied long-range missiles. The Wall Street Journal had reported that the move would allow Kyiv to strike targets inside Russia, but Trump dismissed the claim on Truth Social, calling it fake news. The American president said the United States had nothing to do with those missiles or with what Ukraine does with them.
The Wall Street Journal story on the USA's approval of Ukraine being allowed to use long-range missiles deep into Russia is fake news. The U.S. has nothing to do with those missiles, wherever they may come from, or what Ukraine does with them.
The report had followed Ukraine's strike on a munitions facility in Bryansk, using a British-supplied Storm Shadow missile. U.S. officials told the Journal that authority for approving such attacks had recently shifted from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to General Alexis Grinkowicz, NATO's top commander in Europe. Meanwhile, during a visit to Oslo, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described Trump's proposal to freeze current front lines as a good compromise, but questioned whether Russia would agree, saying both leaders discussed security guarantees and US involvement in Ukraine's defense.
We had more than 2 hours conversation on different topics with a lot of details. Yes, I think, the most important details what we talk about, how to defend ourselves, how to have unity and security guarantees, and the place of the United States, which is important in security guarantees for the future of Ukraine, and how now to go to political decisions, peace negotiations, diplomatic way, how to stop Putin. That's why we had a long conversation. After our conversation, you saw messages, public messages from Trump. He proposed stay where we stay and begin conversation. I think that was good compromise, but I'm not sure that Putin will support it, and I said it to President.